Former NFL head coach Eric Mangini joining us. Good to see you, Coach.
Good morning.
Coach, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Good to be back. Okay, we're going to go back to the Eagles here. Carson Wentz, he tore both his ACL and his LCL while diving into the end zone in Week 14 last season. His backup, Nick Foles, really did his thing. He led the Philly Eagles all the way to its first Super Bowl. Despite Foles' solid play, though, Wentz says he's got an aggressive timetable to return from injury. Take a listen.
Timetables and all those things are always such a fluid thing. You know, every athlete responds differently. Everybody's body responds differently. So obviously can't come out and make any declarations on anything. But my goal is definitely to be playing Week 1.
Okay, Coach, I got to go there. The question everybody's wondering, should the Philly Eagles sell Nick Foles for a, high price while they can, or should they keep him as an insurance policy?
Sell him like a hot Philly, like the Philly Eagles. Sell him like a hot Philly cheesesteak.
This is hard because Nick Foles was able to do something that very few people have been able to do, which is keep a good team on track and then actually excel and win. You saw it the year before with Derek Carr and Oakland, the way that they fell apart. Then there was Ryan Tannehill in Miami. You'd think good things were going well there. And even last year, you saw it in Green Bay.
Houston. Houston gets the playoffs.
Over Broncos, same thing. You know,
over and over again, the backup quarterback, you're hoping for something at least in terms of keeping the team on track, not losing games. And it's hard to get that from the backup quarterback. So he went in and actually helped them win games. To me, that makes it hard to give him up. And the thought of Carson Wentz being 100% healthy, you'd love to say, okay, he's definitely going to be this or he's going to be that, but it's hard to know that. Now, that being said, they got a 1 and a 4 for Sam Bradford late in the season. I think it was September 3rd when they traded him.
Yes.
If someone makes you an offer that you can't refuse, you gotta look at it and you got to think hard about it, because additionally, this is now a destination for those quarterbacks that maybe aren't on track in their career, and they think, okay, maybe I can go to Philly and do what Nick Foles did.
They might be able to get Sam Bradford back.
They could get Sam Bradford back, and so it becomes a very attractive spot.
Go ahead, Doug.
Look, I think you absolutely sell, but you sell for the right price at the right time, which the Bradford analogy is perfect, right? They had 3 quarterbacks. They do like Nate Sudfeld, so much so they played Nate Sudfeld Week 17. That doesn't mean they want him to be their Week 1 starter, but you just sit there and understand that the Jets need a quarterback, the Browns need a quarterback, the Cardinals need a quarterback, the Broncos need a quarterback, like the Jacksonville Jaguars still need a quarterback. So all these teams need a quarterback, and there's only Kirk Cousins and a couple of backups. Suddenly A.J. McCarron suddenly becoming a starter that people want to trade for or hope he gets released. So somebody is going to have the desire for a quarterback. Now, they're going to draft a bunch, and they're going to play him early. Somebody gets hurt, that's when you move him. So he's an asset. His value will never be higher, and I do think you move him, but you move him at just the right moment. But Howie Roseman has been able to have 3 quarterbacks and move one in the past. I don't think there's any reason to believe he won't do it again.
Yeah, I think this is a great time also to make sure that you're not in the same boat that all these other teams are in. Like, you're in a great position today, but don't sacrifice that position today that you're right back in the position where, wow, I got to go out and find a guy. Carson is still hurt. He's not going to be healthy in August. So for me, what I believe, a lot like Garoppolo last season, I believe that right now is not the time that he can fetch the biggest price. I believe right at the beginning of the season or right at the trade deadline, between that window right there, because someone's quarterback is going to get hurt.
And they're going to be desperate.
And we know this in following the league, that there are going to be several opportunities, and if you can hold on to when Carson is completely cleared compared to trying to do it this offseason and this summer. To me, he's my insurance policy. I'm not letting him go, and I'm not letting him go because what he has with the other guys in the locker room. So I'm not gonna have them worrying about Carson and then us get rid of Nick Foles. There's a comfort level with that football team. And Coach Mangini said, now listen, you got to take advantage of winning the Super Bowl. You are a destination. Guys are willing to take less. So for me, I'm keeping my assets until at least the start of the season. Between that window and the trade deadline, like they traded Garoppolo last year, is the window that I would look at if I was going to move it.
But they didn't get enough for Garoppolo, right? They didn't get. We would agree they didn't get it.
No, they were in a unique situation. Tom Brady and Garoppolo have the same agent. They had fetched a bigger price for him in Cleveland. They would not sign a contract extension, so they couldn't trade for him.
I understand, but can we agree that a second-round pick is not enough for the guy who signed the biggest contract in the history of the sport?
Well, it's funny because every year people talk about, well, you should get a first for this guy. You should get this for this guy. And look, I want a certain price for houses that I have for sale.
Right.
But if someone's not willing to pay it, I can't get it.
I only work with somebody.
I understand. But you mean to tell me they couldn't have grinded the San Francisco 49ers for a first-round pick?
Well, we all look at Bill Belichick and say, yeah, he's pushover. So I'm sure that
he's handing out hardy deals.
He typically gives those guys away, so I'm sure.
So I guess maybe here's the question.
I don't think they could have ground it up.
Here's the question, Coach: is what is the offer you can't refuse, right? What's the horse head in the bed for Nick Foles? Because Nick Foles has said, and again, we all say things in the media after we win a Super Bowl, but he said that he's humble, he's been humbled by the sport, and he's just happy to be the starter, happy to be the backup, doesn't want to be traded, not making a ton of money. Look, would he want to be?
He's making $6 million as a backup.
I understand, but he's not making starter money, right?
Well, he's not a starter.
Yeah,
he's not a starter.
But he will be a starter wherever he's traded to.
Well, look, and when he gets traded, he'll get more money.
I'm not certain that Nick Foles is a starter. You're convinced he's a starter.
No. I'm saying somebody's going to trade. I'm not convinced he's a starter, but somebody thinks there's somebody out there who thinks he's a starter.
Who?
I don't know.
Who?
You mean to tell me the Jets couldn't use him?
Well, look, there's a lot of people that could use him, and we could say, yeah, he'd be better here, he'd be better there. But we've got the draft to go through. We've got free agency to go through. We've got a lot of quarterbacks that are free agents that are in the Nick Foles strata and could potentially go somewhere. A guy like Sam Bradford, he's done some really good things in the league.
I'm the one Sam Bradford fan in the national media, okay? But Sam Bradford started one game, and then he couldn't walk. He couldn't play.
All right,
like, you can't depend on him because he's always hurt.
But when you look at Nick Foles after he had that big year in Philly, it's not like he was lighting it up anywhere that he went.
Yes.
Now suddenly maybe it's a system fit. And
system and players around him. One thing Brian Billick always told me, because we had strategically picked Baltimore as the place he would go. He was the offensive guru. Go with Ray Lewis and that defense coach. You're going to have a chance to win more championships than to go. Because he had his pick. I mean, we had broke the NFL record. Man, he had 4 or 5 different jobs he could take. In taking that job, he called back to Minnesota to me and Chris, man, these guys just aren't you. There's not a Robert Smith. There's not a Randy Moss. There's not a Chris Carter. Like, it's nice in theory, but when you don't have the guns, and what a lot of these quarterbacks, the backups, all of them got warts, bro. It's just a matter of which one of the warts can you decide to live with. Yeah. Like Nick Foles had plenty of warts 6 weeks ago.
Right.
When they were trying to babysit him to try to get him to win games, they just cut him loose the Minnesota game and the Super Bowl game. But Sam Bradford, he's got warts, all these guys, and that's the reason why they're back up.
Oh, let me ask y'all all this. I want to take it around the table, starting with you, Coach. Let's look at it from Nick Foles' point of view, right? And let's go to your system fit point, which I think is brilliant. Do you think from Nick Foles' vantage point, he would rather remain a backup in a system that he knows works for him, he can look like a superstar if need be, or go get more money, go get paid, and be a starter, potentially? I understand there's some question around his ability to truly be a starter, but potentially be a starter and get a payday, but possibly expose some of those warts Chris Carter's talking about.
Well, you want your backup quarterback to believe that wherever he goes, he's going to be successful. And we talk about this with Kirk Cousins, whether you go to Cleveland or not. If you're a franchise quarterback, you change franchises. If Nick Foles believes in his heart of heart that he's a starting quarterback, then of course in his mind he'd want to go and get that opportunity and the payday that comes with it. Now, that being said, sometimes it's really nice to be able to take a step back, to sit in that role that he's had, to reevaluate things that you've done well and done poorly in your career, so that the next time you have an opportunity to start full-time, you're so much better prepared to take advantage of that opportunity.
I think, like, I don't know what rests in his heart, right? Are you truly happy in Philadelphia, making $6 million, handing it over? I would say that most athletes want to play. You want to play.
But they also want to look good, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, but I think that whether the RPOs or it's other parts of the system that made him look good, we generally have a sense for what makes Nick Foles look good, what makes Nick Foles look like a backup quarterback. You know, if you look at Week 17, he looked like a backup quarterback.
Yes.
You look at the Vikings game, you look at the Super Bowl, he looked like, oh my God, how come Jeff Fisher ruined this guy's career?
Right.
So do I think he ultimately wants a starter? Yeah, we all want to start. We all want to hear our name called. And I guess my question, though, to you, Coach, though, was still, what is the call that you take to which it's too much to pass up? If it's now, if it's after Wentz comes back, is it a first? Is it a second? What is the value that makes him overvalued to which you have to move him?
You can't assign that value right now without understanding where Carson Wentz is, because his value increases dramatically based off of the availability of Carson Wentz and the idea that he can go through the complete season. You know, everybody thought Ryan Tannehill in Miami, everybody thought he was going to come back, he was going to be fine, he was going to compete throughout the entire season, and he gets hurt in training camp. So the value, you got to hold him for a while, you've got to figure out where you are in relationship to alternatives, and then you really can assign value.
And we can't avoid everything that Nick Foles has said.
Right.
All right, forget our opinion. Forget that every athlete wants to play. Every athlete does not want to play, and every athlete doesn't want to get a bigger contract because a lot of times they're comfortable where they are. Nick Foles talked about 2 years ago giving up football. Now, sports are different. It is no sport like football. And when you talk about quitting football, you are saying something as far as what your body is not willing to take. Now, where he is in his life, as far as his marriage, he talks about that, his newborn child, like he's in a good spot. And we're always the people to move people from a good spot to think that because of money and location it's going to get better. But we are forgetting what Nick Foles said. Yeah. Look at him and the piece that he had. And don't forget this. He said Carson Wentz is a stud. And I enjoy working with him. It's a pleasure, and I'm trying to help him be the greatest player that he can potentially be. So we can't negate what the guy is saying. Now, if this was a guy saying, you know something, I'm looking for my next opportunity, then yes. But Nick Foles, let's listen to him. And he's very, very happy and content where he is.
I think that's spot on because your kind of perspective I totally appreciate, Doug, but you're a maximizer. That's who you are. That's probably how most athletes are. They want to go with the biggest and best opportunity. But, Chris, you're right. Maybe Nick is not a maximizer, and maybe he's content with what feels good enough for him.
2 years ago, he was going to quit.
Exactly.
Right. But there's also the reality of eventually Carson Wentz is going to get an extension. Eventually, you can't afford to necessarily keep them both. And eventually, he did say that he's happy and that he likes working with Carson Wentz, but he also said it'll take care of itself because I think he knows the reality of the sport, which is, hey, if you got a backup quarterback that somebody's willing to give you a first for, then you make that move if Carson Wentz is back healthy.
Yeah, at some point, it's not even his choice. That's very, very true, Doug. Thank you, Coach. We're going to see you later in the show. But up next, are the Rockets actually better than the Warriors? Certainly the record looks that way. That's next on First Things First.
Baltimore needs a quarterback. Miami needs a quarterback.